Mike at it. I know I'm thinking about all the parts here in the 12 and 12, talking about humility and talking about a lot of what it's not. Talks about self-deprecating is not it, and that humility is more the condition of groveling despair, and that there is a difference between humiliation and humility. But it doesn't really go into what it is. It just keeps using the word over and over and over. But if I look close, there's some definitions in here, and it's really important to get in touch with those. And there's a couple of other places in the book that go along with the actual definition that Bill gave for humility. It's already been mentioned on 72. It talks about it has a tough going of it. It says the same thing on 58 where he actually defines humility, which I think it's important to know what the author considers to be the definition of humility if I'm to try to get the message that he's trying to carry in the text. 58 talks about another human. Is humility a word often misunderstood? To those who have made progress in AA, and I find that to be humorous. He's tongue-in-cheek there. He's going to say a lot of people can't understand what I'm saying, but to those that have made progress, this is what it is. I chuckle at his. He's such a wordsmith. Anyway, to those who have made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. And that dovetails right along with what he just got through saying at the top of 73, where it talks about this humble admission of powerlessness over alcohol is the first step toward liberation from its paralyzing grip. Because what he just said on 58 was realizing who and what I have become. And that's what he just got through saying on 73, admitting that I've got this. But then he says, part of the definition of humility is being willing to go farther. And again, he says it right there. First step toward the liberation. So humility is not deprecating myself and saying negative things so other people will think I'm humble, which is most people's definition, really. The lowliest you speak about yourself, the more people are going to think you're humble. That's basically the human's definition of what humility is. But according to the author, it's saying, yeah, I got problems, but I'm doing what I can to improve them. And setting about that, and acknowledging that I'm setting about that I'm not fettered or chained to that. That sheds a lot different light on humility. Because then, if it also incorporates not just saying that I'm an addict and alcoholic, but incorporates the process of me coming out of it, then everything that goes along with me talking about the process and how I'm improving with it is part of humility. But he doesn't stop there. He talks about a basic ingredient of humility. And the reason I'm focusing on these things is because there's always been a phrase in recovery, the minute you say you've got humility is the minute you've lost it. And the reason that I'm focusing on these definitional aspects is because if we're to take the author at his word, which we all claim to, then if I have admitted who and what I have become and am willing to move toward what I can be, and if it's like it says here, the basic ingredient of humility is a desire to seek and do God's will, and I have a desire to seek and do God's will, does it hold? If I qualify for those definitions, if I say I've got humility, that I just lost it? No, it doesn't. It's just professing it. It's just saying, yeah, looks like check, got that one, check, got that one, check, got that one. So you can see how using the text and finding his hidden meanings amidst this 50 or some odd times he uses the word humility, he only defines it about 2 times. I guess he expects me to find the definition and then use that definition as he mentions it all throughout the book. When I think about this discussion about character being lost in the dust, You know, it's something I've always said. It means there's a difference between having character and being a character. And I think part of this definition is realizing when I got here that I have been a character and setting about gaining character. Again, it backs up the definition again, because it went on for that entire page to talk about building character, and building character is being part of humility. So again, there's nothing incongruous about what his initial definition was and what I'm talking about. So the positiveness of moving toward these beneficial results is much a part of humility as saying I'm an addict, which is the first part of humility, realizing who and what I've become. But the second part is the most important and will take the most time, which is coming up out of that. And using God not just in the bad times, but in the good times, because we'll find 2 pages from now in 75, he talks about that I always use God as a bush league pinch hitter. And that's also something that I have to turn my back on, because that's what I always did before, which is part of the reason that I had such a Grand Canyon between me and my conception of God, because if somebody had treated me like I obviously treated God, only praying in the bad times, then when you get me out of it, giving him the big finger, giving Big G the big finger, I got it now, I wouldn't want to have nothing to do with him. So I think part of the practice of gaining character is thanking God in the good times and paying those insurance premiums for when the challenges do come. I can't talk about humility without talking about Dr. Bob's mention of humility. It comes from Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. And Dr. Bob, those of you that studied AA history, was the calm one of the two. Bill was the power driver. Dr. Bob was always calming him down, and their synergistic relationship, the sum of the parts was greater than the individual parts added up, is well known in AA history. So if Dr. Bob was the calm one and he never used cuss words or strong language, for him to say he hated something must have been pretty big. And the one thing he said he hated after the meetings had started and after people started coming in the meetings is he said he hated the fake humility of Dickens' Uriah Heep. And he talks about it in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, and what he's talking about is how he started hearing people talk about humility in meetings, trying to sound lowly with the desire to sound humble to people, and all he heard was a bunch of fake bullshit. And he said it infuriated him. He said he hated fake humility. And I had to go look up Uriah Heep, what that meant, because I wasn't just going to read it and say, oh, yeah, Uriah Heep, yeah. Who fucking knows what that is? You don't have to raise your hand. I know. You'll have to look it up, too. So the thing about it is that it's a story by Dickens, and it was about a hand-wringing servant of a rich man, a rich, old, decrepit man who was a real estate tycoon and had a bunch of money. And this Uriah Heep was this servant that would follow him around saying, oh, you're so smart. I really need your tutelage. I don't know what I would do without you. I mean, I'm just a lowly servant, and I just am so fortunate to have you showing me all these times. All the while, the undercurrents was that he thought the guy was a fucking idiot, and that he was a dumbass, and that he was smarter than him. You feel what I'm saying? He was saying all these things, but he didn't believe any of it. That was the fake humility. And that was what Dr. Bob was talking about. So that's what just as much we have to be wary of in here. And I hear it all the time. I hear fake humility all the fucking time. Now that I know what to listen for. Because we say all kinds of things in here. And then people leave, and that's the last thing that they fucking think. So I am always careful not to be fake about my humility. And to always adhere to this definition, even though I know most people don't even know that this definition is here. That's why a lot of times people go, man, I just don't know. I don't get that, Mike Smith. Whatever. That's why I'm still sitting here. See, the thing about it is that when we talk about a book study, that's what I'm doing right now. We're studying multiple parts of the book. We're tying it together with gold thread like Rumpelstiltskin so I can understand what this message is, because I can miss it in all the minutia. I can miss it with all these mentions of humility, and I can also miss it trying to incorporate what I think the definition of humility in a text. And maybe it just doesn't fit. Maybe the definition of humility, I think, is the fake humility. And if I try to make it match all that, it's not going to be anything to talk. So that's why, the conversation of humility is important. I appreciate that he expanded 6 and 7 into some pages, but in the final analysis, 6 and 7 is nothing but a realization and a decision, just like 3 was. It's admitting that I see these things objectionable on that step, and I'm praying to God to have them removed, but nothing has happened when I do that. It's a decision that's vital and crucial, but will have little permanent effect unless at once followed by the rest of the steps. That's why there's not much in 6 and 7 in the book, because there ain't nothing to it. Because nothing happens in 6 and 7. There's no action there. It's a realization, yes, they're objectionable. It's a question, God help me remove them. And then it says, go out from here and do your bidding. That means I got to go do the bidding. I got to go make the amends and get the motivation to live differently. And then to practice the opposite, just like the coffee in the coffee pot, and start putting some clear stuff in there so it starts getting better. I'm not just going to sit and God's going to do it all. He's not going to do it. So I thought I would throw that out there. Felt a lot of silence coming on, and also I needed to have a humility topic for my and I'll pass.